Too often, the times when you're not even looking are when things grab your attention, and you can't ignore them. From a distance, this dresser compared to the others was quite striking, but as I moved closer, it looked worn and neglected. I have no doubt that at some point it was well loved and had seen much better days. I don't really know. Maybe I should have walked away that day and just left it there for someone else. That decision certainly would have saved me countless hours of hard work. Perhaps against my better judgment, I decided to take a chance on this old dresser. Partially disassembling any piece of furniture by removing the drawers and the pulls gives me the opportunity to assess any damage and carefully consider how I might proceed. If I had to guess, I'd say this final layer of pink paint was recently sprayed on, directly over the orange peel textured layer that I'll soon discover underneath. It's often difficult to determine the era for such a simple dresser. The condition on the backside would indicate that this was likely manufactured during the first half of the 20th century. Based on those findings, I was convinced that this would mostly be solid oak. A simple test swab dipped in white vinegar will indicate that the individual layers of paint do not contain lead. I can now move on to applying a chemical stripper using a disposable chip brush. The summer weather varies here in Wisconsin. I try to complete this step in the evenings when the temperature is in the high 70s. I'll let this paint stripper sit on the surface for approximately 20 minutes. I'm always excited to finally begin scraping back the layers of paint to reveal what's hiding underneath. Many of you have probably at least attempted to restore or refinish secondhand furniture, and if you're just getting started, learning basic woodworking or refinishing skills can be intimidating, especially learning how to use and maintain all the necessary tools for your craft. I started working on furniture just a few years ago, and I quickly realized just how many basic skills I wasn't familiar with. It can also be frustrating trying to search for the right information online. This video is sponsored by Woodworkers Guild of America. Woodworkers Guild of America is an excellent online resource for woodworking instructions, ideas, and information. By using their online resources, I was able to find short instructional videos that taught me how to sharpen chisels, how to set up and use my router table, how to use hand planes, as well as various sanding and finishing techniques. Their online tutorials were especially helpful when learning how to safely use larger equipment in the community wood shop. The first 1,000 of my viewers to click the link in the video description will get a full year of premium membership to Woodworkers Guild of America for only $1.49. So thank you, Woodworkers Guild of America, for making this project possible. It's beginning to look as though this dresser had a dark original finish, then at some point painted white, and perhaps following the bright painted furniture trends in the last 5 years, someone decided to go with a bold pink color. There's no need to pass judgment for this. Maybe it was well loved for a long time in a child's nursery. I was slightly disappointed when I realized this was not oak, but something else. At this point, I need to consider other finish options. I'll use Clean Strip's afterwash product and fine steel wool to help neutralize and remove the chemical stripper. Here's a closer look at just some of the many sanding tools I use for projects like this. Working on a cheap dresser like this allows me to continue to familiarize myself with the unique capabilities of each tool. It's not uncommon for these metal casters to be missing wheels, especially if they are wood. This time I'll remove the casters completely and save them for a future project. For any beginner attempting to refinish an old piece of furniture, it might be confusing which step comes next. To keep things simple, the goal is simply to remove as much of the old finish as possible without causing damage to the structure. Sometimes I prefer to scrape the paint from the flat surfaces where it comes off easily, and other times using a chemical stripper is more efficient. By switching back and forth between these techniques, I'm able to break up the monotony of doing the same thing for hours at a time. I've obviously not finished completely removing the layers of paint, but I'll take a break and begin sanding. I've already determined which sections of the dresser are solid wood and which have a thin layer of veneer. For this reason, I'll start with the more aggressive 5-inch SurfPrep Orbit sander with a coarse 80 grit sanding disc. This may in fact be the best option for some projects if you're not concerned about wasting sandpaper. There are furniture purists who don't believe in using power sanders on old furniture, and that approach is respectable, but the chances of this mass-produced piece with a finished value of $200 to $300 landing in the hands of a purist is highly unlikely, so I'll try to manage my time and hopefully leave this dresser better than the way I found it. The top of this dresser is covered with thick strips of veneer, and over the years the wood has shifted, cracked, and lifted in many areas. I'll do my best to re-glue the strips that have lifted, but regarding the many cracks all throughout, on the dresser, drawer fronts, and the top of the dresser, I think I'll leave them in order to preserve the character of this piece. One of the reasons I felt comfortable using more aggressive power sanders on this project is that the veneer in most places is almost 4 millimeters in thickness. In comparison, veneer used on most furniture pieces is often 1 millimeter or less. I like to use sheets of this reusable SandNet sandpaper. I can cut pieces to fit most of my sanding blocks, as well as the SurfPrep 3x4 sander. For most of the sanding, I'll start with 150 grit sandpaper and work my way up to 180 grit sandpaper in preparation for the final finish. For some of the harder to reach areas, like around the side trim pieces, using a sponge-like pad on the SurfPrep 3x4 will remove most of the finish without damaging the original profile. For the flat surfaces, I can switch back to using a thin Velcro pad with the sandpaper sheets cut to size. The thin pad between the sander and the sandpaper will help absorb some of the vibrations from the sander and enable it to glide smoothly across the surface. It takes less than a minute to remove the old finish around the keyholes. I've done this many times before. For this piece, I decided to leave small sections of the old finish around the keyholes to give this a little more character. I won't be using the locks on this dresser, but I'll do my best to clean out the keyholes. Aside from the need to choose the right projects and appropriate sponsors to support myself financially, I care so little about the actual work that's involved with these projects. I look for those projects that will be difficult and time-consuming because I have a responsibility to my viewers to provide interesting content, but also because I know that somewhere along the way, I'll likely discover a valuable lesson. It's not always the furniture itself or the story behind the piece that reveals these lessons. Sometimes the hours of hard work allow for the unique opportunity for moments of reflection in my own life. Of course, with each project there will be challenges and moments when I just want to give up. But then there are also those brief moments of pure joy and happiness that make all the hard work worth it. In the end, whether I keep this or decide to move on, I hope that I've at least learned a few things that I can apply in the future. If you're planning to spend a lot of time working on furniture, then investing in a nice sander like a SurfPrep sander would make sense. Otherwise, you can pick up a detailed mouse sander like this for less than $30 at Harbor Freight or on Amazon. With each project, I do my best to balance using some of the best, most expensive refinishing tools available on the market with some of the most affordable tools on the market. I know some of you are going to ask where I purchased this hydraulic motorcycle lift that I use to move my furniture around in the shop. I believe I paid $250 for it at Harbor Freight, and it's saved my back many times since. I'll add a link for a similar product in the video description, as well as other links for the products used in this video. My first choice for any furniture piece is to try and keep it as original as possible. I'm not sure if these are the original knobs, but I had hoped to reuse them. That is, until I realized some were made from birch, while others looked to be oak. So I decided to order a new, complete set of oak knobs to keep everything looking the same. Once sanded, I'm now fairly certain this dresser is mostly birch. I enjoy seeing the stark contrast that the knots in the wood provide, as well as natural imperfections, if you will. Although I use traditional stains for most projects, every once in a while I enjoy keeping the wood looking as natural and beautiful as possible. For that reason, I decided to keep this piece light. I'll apply several coats of Fitty's clear wax, and once applied, I'll let the wax dry for several minutes before buffing it with a shop rag. Most protective finishes like shellac, lacquer, or even polyurethane will darken the wood slightly, similar to what you see here. The advantage with this clear wax is, once completely dry, you'll be left with the original color of the dresser. This may be difficult to show with the different lighting, but you should see evidence in the final reveal. I hope you'll join the channel if you feel that I've earned your subscription. My name is Barry, and thanks for joining me. Goodbye for now.